Hello and welcome to my cafe. Today I am going to give you a little bit of a tour around my small little cafe here in Sichuan, China, and I'm going to talk to you about my investment, things I'm satisfied with, things I'm not satisfied with, and kind of what my future is for this little restaurant. So let's go. Okay, so first things first, we have about 25 seats more or less here in this cafe. 4 outside on the deck and about 20-ish inside. We have 5 tables, and we have bench seating along the wall, so actually we could fit quite a few more people in here if we really needed to. But it seats about 20 people, 25 people comfortably in total. My kind of concept for this restaurant was kind of American diner style. I do burgers, I do pizza, obviously I have coffee. I also have Chinese favorites like milk tea. I'm also here in Southeast Asia, right here on the border with Laos and Myanmar and Thailand. And so I also have like Thai tea, but it's mostly kind of American style diner cafe. My specialty is hamburgers. I've always loved eating hamburgers. Worked in hamburger restaurants. My very first job ever was at a fast food restaurant, and now I have my kind of own hamburger place. We also have amazing pizza, some pretty good Mexican food, so that's kind of what we do here. We also have American breakfast like pancakes, waffles, French toast with eggs, bacon, maple syrup, all that sort of good stuff. So our menu is not super big, but what we do, I think we do pretty damn well. Okay, I want to talk about my investment. I spent about 30,000 US dollars to open this restaurant. Ideally, my goal was to spend about half that when I started, so I went a little bit over budget, unfortunately, but I think it's still going to be okay. So I'm going to kind of give you a rundown today about what I spent to open this restaurant and where the money went. And I'm going to talk about these numbers in Chinese currency, and I will put the equivalent in dollars on the screen. I'm talking about in Chinese currency because that's what I spent. I'm in China, and also because currency fluctuations. I can just tell you exactly what I spent instead of try to guesstimate and what it was back then versus what it is now and blah blah blah. So that's what we're gonna do. The two biggest things that I spent money on were rent, of course, and also the design and the renovation fee. So rent, I talked about it in my last video about the cafe. I spent about 50,000 RMB for the first year of rent here. It's a little over 4,000 a month, and also have like a garbage fee and also electricity and water and those sort of things, but it totals to a little bit over 50,000 for the first year, upfront cost already paid. And then the next biggest fee was the design and renovation fee. So I went to a couple different design companies here in town, and I chose the one that seemed to be the most professional. It turns out that I don't know if they were the most professional because I only got to choose one in the long run, but they ended up being not exactly all that great. I'm not super satisfied, but at the end of the day, what can you do? My cost for that ended up being about 90,000 RMB. That included the design and included the renovation, the construction. When I first rented this place, it was just an empty shell, just a concrete cinder block room. And so it's all been completely done from scratch. I'm gonna put up a picture of the concept rendering. This wasn't like a final design, a full final concept. It changed, they didn't re-render it, but we talked about different changes. I probably should have had them re-render it. That's like a thing I'm second guessing myself now, because we talked about different changes and then they didn't necessarily get implemented. But for the most part, the concept that I'm putting up on the screen right now is kind of what we went with. I wanted a place that's kind of like an art gallery. I like to take photos. The name of the cafe is Boca Cafe, and that is a photography term. I didn't want to just put my photos up, but I wanted to have like a place where other photographers, ideally local photographers or high school students that their hobby is photography, or college students, where they might not have a chance to hang their art somewhere, they could put it here. That was my original idea. So I wanted like nice and white, bright space where I could kind of highlight the pictures on the wall and make it more like a kind of a gallery feeling. And I just wanted something bright and airy and vibrant. What ended up happening was this. And it's okay, but it's not what I was hoping exactly. What I wanted, my idea was dark woods and bright kind of white walls, and also brushed concrete walls, because we already had a concrete wall and I thought they could just kind of like slather some more concrete and then do some brushed concrete to get a nice texture on the wall. Something really simple, and that's what we talked about, and that's what we put in the render. You can see they just they put up some drywall and then they painted it gray. And when they were doing that, I was like going kind of crazy, and I told them this is not what we talked about many times, and it ended up being like this anyway. It was just not worth the fight to try to argue with them. Also, I wanted kind of a gray concrete wall, and I wanted white background to display the pictures, just like a very neutral background to display pictures. They were quite insistent that we do blue. I'm like, I'm the client, but they decided they like blue, the designer likes blue, they have blue paint, so that's what we got. We got blue paint on the walls. Also, the wood was supposed to be darker, supposed to match this color wood, but they decided to go with probably the cheapest wood possible. Again, in hindsight, I probably should have always been on them, like going to get materials with them, going to pick out materials. They gave me samples in their studio, in their office. They gave me little samples, I said okay, and then they're not necessarily exactly what we wanted. Again, at the end of the day, what can I really do? Not much. They were trying to save money on their budget, obviously. Give me a fancy proposal and cut corners as much as they can and don't pass the savings to me. But I'm gonna talk about kind of what happened, some problems we had, and why my cost was only $90,000 as opposed to over $100,000, which it should have been according to our contract. So I'll talk about that later. So me and the designer and the construction people, we had a little bit of a disagreement. So in our contract, it gave them 20 days to do all the construction here. It also gave them 10 days of extra time, like leeway time, to have no kind of penalty. They started on November 1st, and on December 20th was the day I opened, so I guess December 19th they were done, but they still weren't quite done. Like the kitchen wasn't complete, the wiring in the kitchen wasn't done. I couldn't cook anything for a couple of days after I opened. Ultimately they were done on December 24th, so 24 days past their leeway time. According to the contract that we signed, every day past the 30th day that they were late, they were supposed to return 1% of the total fee to me. Over the course of the construction time, of course, I had to pay them some money. It was like 30% to start, and then certain deadlines when the walls were done and the floor was done, it was like another 30%. I ended up paying them 90%. Our contract was like 102,000 was the total for everything, and I paid them about 90,000 RMB. And then they were over 20 days late, and so I'm paying rent. My rent-free time for the building here was a couple months, and from the time get the license and the permits and everything, I'm already paying rent, and they're still doing construction, and so they should be paying me back for their late time. So long story short, or long story long, I paid them about 90,000 RMB, and they actually should probably pay me back maybe around 10,000 or 12,000, something like that. They're still trying to get money from me, probably about once a week. They send somebody here, even when I was gone to America or in quarantine, they send somebody here, hey, when's Eric gonna pay the rest of the money? And I say, when are you gonna pay me back the money? Or I say, I'm not gonna pay you back, you don't pay me back, I just call it square, that's fine for me. But they still trying to collect money. I talked to a couple lawyers, they said the contract definitely is in my favor. I can hold my ground. If they want to take me to court, they definitely can do that, and I'll probably win. Although trying to go to court in China is not something I'd like to do, but I should probably be okay with that. With the design company, okay, like I said, the design company, I'm the client, right? I should be able to tell them what I want. Of course, I accept their input. If they think something's wrong, like it can't be done, I will listen to that. But one thing I was really insistent on, because the space is quite small, I'm only 90 square meters, was to put benches and have storage, because I was really worried about storage. And so we talked about it a couple times. I said I want benches, seats that you can lift up and put stuff in, like this. I'll show you. Okay, so I can put stuff in there. Paper goods, dry goods, just a place for storage. And so when I was here and they were doing their construction, the first bench they put here, they were cutting holes in the front and they were trying to make it so that you could pull it out or open a door. And I was like, there's no way we're doing this. Like, I'm taking a stand right now. We're doing seats to lift up. So they ended up having to change that out. But it was a struggle. That was one of the biggest fights I had. Obviously this is a lot more convenient, a lot more practical to use. And they were just trying to do something that was easy and cheap, just like cut a hole, put a little hinge and you could pull it out. I don't know. Another kind of argument I had, although this one was a little bit more easy to explain, was when they were still putting in the floor and the water, the pipes, everything. Like, I told them I need my coffee machine towards the front of the shop, but the water from the mains, or where the water comes into the building, is over in the kitchen, so they had to run pipe through the ground. And they were trying to cut costs again, so they ran their pipe just to right here on this counter. So as you can see, it's really, really, really far away from the front door. It would be far from where I would try to serve the customers, like the point of sale machine. So they ran the pipe just to right here, and it was coming up through the cement where they poured. And I was in here and I was like, no, 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 no. Cannot be doing this. The coffee machine cannot be here. The design, the blueprints, it said it's over there. They're like, but it's cheaper here, it's cheaper here, it's cheaper here. And I'm like, cheaper for who? You know? Ultimately, they changed it. They had to do some extra piping and stuff and send it over there another 10 feet or 12 feet. And it's a lot more functional over there. Another big issue I had with the construction and the designer team was, like I talked about, I wanted like a gallery kind of feeling, and I also wanted to have like a bar kind of feeling at night, like kind of more chilled out vibe, can turn the lights down. And so I asked them for a couple things. One, I asked them to be able to dim the lights, and they constantly pushed back on that. They said having dimmer lights, they're not going to be bright enough, and also they said they're going to cost too much. I really, really wanted dimmer lights. I wanted to be able to, like, at night, kind of have like a lounge feel, but they really pushed back on that, and they ended up just putting probably the cheapest lights they could find into the ceiling. But another thing that I was really insistent upon, we talked about it like at least 5 times. Every time I'd go there, I'd say, hey, we need to make sure we do this right, and they did it wrong, is because I wanted like an art gallery kind of feeling. I wanted to be able to separate the kind of light around the pictures. I want to separate that light from the lights in the ceiling. So they did not do that. So at night, or if I have these lights off, these lights are also off, which is pretty terrible. So I'll show you. Okay, so when I hit that switch, all these lights go off, but also this whole row in the ceiling goes off. So at night, I would think it would be quite nice if just have the lights around the photos or the paintings or whatever art is on the wall on, and then the rest of the lights either off or dim. If you see here, come over here, we have kind of a mood lighting, rim lighting underneath the counter here. So if we had that kind of lighting and lighting around the paintings or the photos, I think it would be really pleasant at night. The mood would feel really good. People might want to sit here and chill and drink some beer. But instead we either have like on or off, and there's no in between. There's no kind of like thought to how they did it. They're just like, okay, lights over here, I'll go on, or I'll go off. And I'm not an electrician, but we have customers. Hey, come in. I'm not an electrician, so I don't know, but that's how they did it, and I'm not satisfied. And also there should be kind of a neon sign here. You can see the electricity coming out, but they kind of stopped because we had our problem. So I just put up some letters from the outdoor sign because they cut them out. I stuck them on the wall for now. Probably like a neon sign or something at some point, or some kind of something there, I don't know. Or just patch it over and close it. So okay, got some customers, so I will be back soon. Okay, so another problem was back here. They measured all these stainless steel tables and had them built so they fit in here perfectly. And then when they started running the pipes for the drain, they realized they made some kind of mistake and they couldn't put the table here. So they left a gap here. And obviously that's a no-go. So now we had to add another little kind of board here. Also, this is not really great quality anyway. So anyway, come on here real quick. Okay, so you can see I still have a table out here in the hallway. That one was from our old table when it fit properly. They just left it there. This is theirs too. They just kind of left it here. I don't know what to do with it. This barrel of water from when they were painting. So, you know, I think, like I said, I tried to find the most professional one here in this town. And I don't know if I did that or not. They presented themselves very well in the beginning, but they made quite a few mistakes and are lazy or something. Something's wrong with their thought process. So I don't expect them to be perfect. I don't expect anybody to be perfect. Like I said, I'm not totally satisfied. There's a lot of little things like paint on the walls that they miss spots, and the colors are wrong. And you know, there's some things that I'm not satisfied with. But if they would have got it like 90% or even 80% to what I wanted, it would have been okay with me. And I probably would have even paid them even if they were delayed. But they got it like 70%, maybe 60% what I wanted. Made some pretty I think pretty big errors that could have easily been rectified if they really cared. But I don't necessarily think they do. So, you know, that's why I didn't end up paying them the full amount. That's why it cost me $90,000. Other costs involved. So the next biggest expense besides the rent and the renovation was the coffee machine, the espresso machine. This cost $17,000. It's secondhand. It did come with 1 year of service and somebody to come and install it for me and do all that sort of stuff and set it up, make sure it's good. It had some problems in the beginning. It was leaking water. It was started like boiling over. There was some like spraying steam everywhere. But now it's okay. It's fine. So that was my biggest other expense to start up this cafe. 17,000 RMB for this one. The next biggest expenses were refrigerators. There's one refrigerator here. There's one freezer in the kitchen, and there's a drink refrigerator back here. Each of these was about 1,500, so altogether about 4,500 for my 3 refrigerators, or 2 refrigerators and a freezer. So another expense was the oven. The oven was 4,500 RMB. The POS machine, the ice machine, the grill, tables and chairs were not that expensive individually, but you know, add them up. I can't even imagine if you bought like if you had a huge restaurant where you know you have 100 chairs or 50 tables, the cost would be quite significant. For me, each table was about 1,000, and the chairs I think were about 250. The longer table, 1,200 I believe. So luckily I have the benches to cut down on some of the chair cost. I only have 4 tables here. You can see I have a small round table. That one altogether with the 2 chairs was only around 600. Outdoor tables, they were also quite cheap. It's altogether around 500. So those are my biggest costs. The grill in the back was really cheap, only 400 kwai, and it works great for grilling hamburgers. So those were my main upfront costs. The coffee grinder here was included in the purchase price and the service and everything with the espresso machine, so I didn't pay for that. Online here in China, it's about 800 kwai, but it's included for me. After all those big expenses, there's just a whole bunch of little things that add up, from everything from plates and cups and coffee mugs and a blender and straws and paper cups and forks and every single little thing that adds up, even ashtrays. That's where all the rest of the cost went. So all those little expenses add up to quite a bit. If we add up everything else I bought, I'm gonna put all the big things I talked about here. Food costs to start up, product cost of goods, beef and noodles and tea and coffee beans and all that other crap you gotta buy to start up a restaurant, start up a cafe. That all is where the rest of the roughly 200,000 RMB or $30,000 went. That's basically how I ended up spending about $30,000 on my cafe. If anybody else has done any business in China or anywhere else in the world, I'd love to see a similar thing. I'd love to see what your setup looks like and what it costs. We can kind of compare what your money will get you all around the world. Please leave a comment. Please drop me a link below if you've made something similar. I'd love to see it. And thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions for next time, if I do another cafe sometime in the future, what I should look for, what I should pay attention to before I dive in, I would love to hear it. I learned a lot from this process, and I hope me talking about it today has also helped you see a couple things to look out for, and hopefully you learned a little bit. So thank you, and see you later. Bye.